You get it? Okay, so we're back. Okay. Okay. So far we're a little bit behind, so we're going to try to pick it up. This is the way we end by 5. So we're one presentation behind according to the agenda. Again, it's loose, flexible. So without further ado, we have Traci. That's the forward slide, and then that's a pointer.
Okay. All right, so thanks for having me. My name is Traci, and I'm presenting today a study to evaluate causes of mussel declines across the eastern United States. To start, this is a huge collaborative effort, as you can tell from my many co-authors, but I specifically wanted to thank Wendell Hogg for making this presentation and mentoring me. Like I said, this is a huge collaborative project, and there are so many people, many of whom are in this room, that have helped. And I wanted to start the talk thanking everyone for their effort and time and the resources you've been very generous with. And so we couldn't list everyone individually because there's dozens and dozens, but here are some of the organizations they represent. So in this study, the problem we're trying to solve is that mussels are disappearing in many places. For example, we have this graph here from Horse Lick Creek, where we see that mussel abundance has declined over 98% in just 15 years. And that this creek isn't unique. You can create plots for many creeks across the eastern United States. As you can see in this map below, all the highlighted gray areas are watersheds that have declining mussel populations. But the problem is that declines are often studied in this limited context, even though it's evident it's happening in many places across this huge region. And so large-scale patterns aren't studied, and causes, when they are known, are often limited to limited context, and there isn't a common cause attributed across the region. So the goals for our study are to examine large-scale associations between watershed conditions and mussel assemblages, and to develop an IBI, or indicator of biotic integrity type index for mussel assemblage health, and develop an index of individual mussel health. We have some hypothesized predictors of what healthy mussel assemblage should be associated with. So we expect that watersheds that have higher water quality, higher watershed forest cover, higher riparian forest cover, and higher stream connectivity will be associated with mussel assemblages that are in healthier conditions. And conversely, we expect watersheds that have a lot of fine sediment transport and deposition, high urban development and intensive agriculture cover, a lot of invasive species, altered hydrology, or emerging pests and pathogens might be associated with poor mussel assemblages that have poor condition. Another sub-goal is also to see if fish IBI and aquatic insect-based IBIs match our assessment of mussel assemblage health. Because ideally it might be easier to collect others, but also to just see if all the different assemblages in the stream have matching health. So for our study, we have 2 main response variables. We have Mussel Community Health Index, or MAHI, and we're also investigating individual mussel health. And we are going to look at all of these different predictor variables and how they affect our response variables. The approach that we're taking is you can see this map here. Across 12 to 14 states, we worked with experts to identify paired sites where we have sites that have a mussel assemblage that we might categorize as in poor condition, and a mussel assemblage that is categorized as in healthy condition, across multiple environmental contexts. And so right now I think we're sitting at just at 70 sites with across 13 states in this region. And as you can imagine, working at this spatial scale, we rely on a lot of our partners. And again, I wanted to thank the natural resource management agencies in 14 states that have worked with us, federal agencies, 10 universities, and multiple NGOs. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I need to say a big thank you to our major funder, the Band Foundation, that started the ball rolling on this project. So what we're doing at these pairs sites across this region, we go to a site in both June and September, and we are characterizing the sediment, because common wisdom says that's a cause of why mussels are declining. We take replicate sediment samples and characterize the particulate distribution, but we're specifically interested in the percent of fine sediment at each site. We're also characterizing sediment deposition rate and using these cool devices. And we're also characterizing oxygen penetration. And so this is because it's thought that the fine sediment clogs all the benthos and reduces oxygen penetration. And it's a really easy thing to collect. So we have this iron stake that we put in the benthos, so it's buried. The middle picture shows a an oxygenation depth of about 30 millimeters, and then the one on the right shows very little oxygenation depth or penetration in the river system. And so, yeah. We're also collecting measures of algal communities and other food resources, specifically by filtering cestone samples and sediment samples. And we'll pair this with isotopic analysis to identify food quality and abundance for mussels in the river. We're also leveraging a lot of federal and state databases to quantify some of these other wide-ranging predictors of mussel declines. For example, here we have the National Land Cover Database, and you can see for 4 of our 2021 sites, our sites span a gradient between a lot of agriculture versus highly forested. And we're also categorizing the amount and the type of land cover in the riparian riparian zone as well. Turning now to our response variables, we have developed or synthesized a mussel assemblage index that's kind of like an IDI for mussel assemblages, and it's built on commonly collected data during mussel surveys. So it scores mussel beds or sites on a scale from 0 to 10 based on 4 metrics. We have the proportion of the historical richness present, the recruitment strength of the entire assemblage, the mussel density relative to the stream size, and population growth, or temporal change in abundance. And this is really handy because we get away from categorical estimates of mussel condition to quantitative estimates of condition. And so you can see lower mahi scores are associated with poor condition, while higher scores are associated with good condition. We're hoping to submit this as a manuscript soon and have developed an online app so that everyone can easily input the data and get a mahi score for your sites, and you can track how your mussel assemblage health changes over time. And I wanted to note that our assemblage is associated with we asked a lot of experts to score the sites they were familiar with, and our estimates of condition are positively correlated with experts' score, and that differences between our indexes score and experts is equal. The difference between experts and the difference between our score and mean experts are equal. And so we're doing just as good a job as experts because we leverage data that y'all provide, which is wonderful. Our second response variable is individual mussel performance and health. So specifically, we have 3 direct variables that we're measuring. Survival. Oh, I should mention, we put up these silos with mussels that have been propagated for 3 months already. So we put 3-month-old mussels out in the river in June and then collect them in September. And so they've been exposed to the mussel conditions in each of these sites across the 70 sites. After September, we measure survival and growth, and our collaborators at Murray State are going to measure cellular energy allocations which estimates energy stores and needs. But also, from these juveniles that we're collecting, we send them off to Wisconsin to measure pathogen prevalence. We are also going to measure their isotopic signatures to see where they're feeding among our expected food resources. And then working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife collaborators, we're going to look at histological condition. I started a month ago, so I'm still learning where everything's going. And today we're going to present preliminary results. These are just plots. No statistical tests have been run. A lot of these relationships I'm going to show you have confounders, and so nothing should be trusted. And you'll also see there's a lot of overlapping distributions. And so when we just look at individual mussel performance and health for our 2021 sites, we see that when we categorize based on those paired sites, mussel assemblages that we think are poor and think are good, we see that survival and growth are not different among these sites. Using the Mahi index, we will be able to improve on this by having a quantitative score of what the mussel assemblage health is, and maybe that we would expect it aligns with juvenile survival and growth, but we haven't got to that point yet. When we look at mean percent fine sediments, we see that sites vary in the amount of mean percent fine sediments they have, with September generally having more fines than June. But when we compare our rivers in our two different conditions, there's no difference. And then when we look at mean depth oxygenation zone, we also see that there's a lot of variance among the sites that we've collected in 2021. But again, that oxygenation depth didn't differ between sites that had poor mussel beds in poor condition, mussel beds in good condition. We see that ceston and sediment organic content varies for fine particulate organic matter varies among sites for our 2021 sites, which is the top row, and 2022 sites, which are the bottom row. You might expect that are based on hydrogeomorphic data, or literature, sorry, and stream restoration literature, that our proportion fine sediment might change based on the land cover in the watershed, and oxygenation depth might also change based on the type of land cover in the watershed. But what we see here is no relationship among proportion cultivated, proportion forested, and proportion developed, and those two estimates of like hydrogeomorphology processes in the river. And when we consider those three types of land cover, watershed land cover as well, we see that there's no difference, again, among mussel sites that had mussel assemblages in poor condition and mussel assemblages that were in good condition. Like I said before, we might expect that mussel assemblages that have that are in poor condition might be experiencing competition with invasive species. So we measured corbicula density at these sites, and we do see that there's a lot of variance among our sites. But when we only have instantaneous growth data for 2021, and when we compare the corbicula density, which are thought to compete with juveniles, to the mean instantaneous growth rate for those juveniles, we see that there's no relationship again. And so right now, our preliminary results say, which are very simple, aren't showing any difference between mussel beds that are in poor condition and good condition. All that to being said, that even this is very preliminary, and we are going to do some more complicated analyses. And even if we don't find a silver bullet, we are aiming to collect data that will aid future management decisions. So maybe we can eliminate some of these common wisdom or commonly thought causes for the decline. And I also wanted to end by saying thank you again to everyone who's helped with this project and generously donated your time. And I'm so excited to work with many of you. So I'll take questions.
Thank you, Tracy. Any questions?
Is there any attempt to compare it to fish density or fish species richness in those segments?
We are definitely going to compare it to the fish IBI. I don't remember, it's been a long time since I read about IBIs, if fish IBIs has incorporates fish density or fish. Okay, yes.
What was the minimum size per bit that you guys are measuring for the density? Was there a size cutoff?
I don't know.
What is the question?
Was there a size cutoff for the minimum corbicula that we measured?
Yeah, we used what we did to estimate corbicula abundance was we had a small quadrant and we excavated all the material and we stored it